Hi guys, Sony was kind enough to send over their 3 new APS-C lenses for review, and I know that this is only 2. The third one I'll talk about in a second, but it made me start thinking that it's about time Sony releases a new APS-C flagship camera, something that competes with the R7. So this video is about how I think that they will compete with the R7 with their new flagship APS-C camera. Now, the 11mm, the 1.8 lens, Barry Johnson is a guy who writes in the comments of some of my videos. He asked, is there any way we can see the 11mm as like a B angle in your little studio there? And I said, sure, why not? So I stuck it on this camera over here, and holy God, is that wide? This is me touching the lens. Look, now I have to suck in my gut the whole time. This is your fault, Barry. Your fault. Okay, this is ridiculous. I'm going to switch this into what I call crop mode. That's a bit more sensible. See, I like to use the active steady shot as a crop mode on the little ZV-E10. I find it's very helpful. And now the 11mm makes a perfect B camera angle, huh? So do me a favor and watch the crap out of those videos and give them a thumbs up, because they didn't send me these pre-release, they sent them post-release, and I'll still appreciate it. But, you know, I'm a greedy YouTuber, so I would like the lenses and cameras before the release. You know, those embargo prizes, huh? Yeah, I would like that. So when they release this new flagship, maybe they'll send it to me beforehand, so I will get all the clicks instead of Arthur R. I mean, he'll still get way more views than me, and rightfully so. He's better at this than I am. Now, of course, I don't know if a new flagship APS-C camera is coming for sure. I mean, they don't tell me anything. I'm not even on their lens embargo list, so what do I know? But I think this kind of needs to happen, and yes, this is water. I'm on a bit of a health kick, trying to keep my gut down, you know, so that it isn't showing up in the wide-angle lenses that keep getting released. That is a pink straw, and I am comfortable enough with my masculinity to drink from it. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think Sony will do, and then I'm going to tell you what I think they should do following that. So right off the bat, to compete with the R7, they need to price it at the R7 price. So we're talking $14.99 USD. You're going to talk about 4K 10-bit. Now, don't do the 10-bit like they're doing in the R7, where they only give it for C-Log 3 and HDR. I think that Sony is going to give 10-bit across the board. They are, you know, very video-friendly cameras. They're going to give you 10-bit in their flagship APS-C. But I think they'll give you 10-bit 4K up to 60 frames per second with no crop. I think that they will try to one-up Canon by giving you the no crop, and I think that they'll probably go with a 24 megapixel sensor, which will be less than the 33 from the Canon, yes, but if they want to do this without a stacked sensor, which they're going to have to do to keep the price at $14.99, then I think that you're going to need 24 megapixels to get a faster readout speed so that you won't have so much rolling shutter. People criticize a lot of the Sony cameras for the rolling shutter, so I think that people are okay with 24 megapixels, but they're not okay with rolling shutter. So I think it will have 24 megapixels. They'll give it the old 1.04 million dot screen that the Sony A7 IV has, which I don't think is good enough, but I think that that is what they'll put in. Probably a 2.36 million dot EVF to go along with that, just because that's enough for people not to complain and to be able to compete somewhat with Canon while keeping the cost down a little bit. Of course, it'll have the new Sony menu and dual card slots and IBIS, but it has to be good IBIS if it's going to compete with the R7. It can't be like the A7C and the A7 III's IBIS, which is pretty garbage. It's going to have to be better. Now, the A7 IV has that active steady shot, the active stabilization, which is pretty good. So maybe decent IBIS with the active stabilization, maybe that will be good enough for people. It'll shoot between 11 and 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter, and maybe between 20 and 30 frames per second with the electronic shutter. And like I said, if the megapixels are not so high, you may be able to use the electronic shutter and not see some of that jello roll. Oh, this is the worst. Now, that's what I think they will do, but here's what I think they should do. Just load this sucker up and charge more for it. Because if you build it, they will come. People will be willing to buy an APS-C camera if it ticks all of their boxes, even though it's not a full frame and it's more expensive than some full frames. If it's good enough, people are going to buy it. You have a real flagship in the A1. Make a real flagship for your APS-C line. So you price it at about $2,000 to $2,200, which, yes, is a lot of money for an APS-C camera. It is still less than the A7 IV, and if it outspecs the A7 IV, there may be people who are willing to pick it up as a secondary camera to their A1 or their A7R4 or their A7S III, or if they have an A7 IV, like me, I would want that flagship APS-C camera to accompany my full-frame A7 IV. But what will be in it that would make it tempting enough at that price to buy it? You get one of those stacked CMOS sensors, you know, that Sony has done in the A1. You get a stack sensor, so now you can do 33 megapixels. You can have super fast readout speeds. You could probably get electronic shutter speeds of 30 frames per second, or maybe more because it's an APS-C size sensor that's 33 megapixels instead of a full-frame 50 megapixel sensor. I mean, you get maybe 20 frames per second with mechanical shutter. So of course now you can do 4K at 120 with no crop, and there wouldn't be any other camera available at that price point that could do 4K 120 uncropped with that amazing Sony autofocus. Of course, you got to do the dual express cards UHS 2 card slot combo that you see on the A7S III, and you put in a crop mode. Because one of the things, like right now, I'm using the crop mode on the A7 IV. The crop mode, and with the R7, they keep talking about the crop mode in 4K 60 will give you extra reach. You can use the crop mode in other ways, because the crop mode, people have realized, is really great at getting further out of your lenses. Now you've got that 33 megapixels, so you can put in almost what would be an APS-C crop mode in a full frame, put that in on the new Sony APS-C flagship. Like right now, I got the active steady shot, which crops in about 40%. So this is still giving me full resolution 4K, and the 11 millimeters now is appropriate for my studio. Give it that A7R4A updated screen, you know, the 2.36 million dot EVF to have a really lovely screen, and the 5.76 million dot EVF to go along with it. Come on, man. This is a flagship camera. Give it some flagship screens. And you'll notice I didn't mention 8K or 6K because you have to be reasonable. You know, you can't have a 50 megapixel sensor that does 8K and does all of these things and expect the price to be $2,000 or $2,200. And I think 4K 120 is going to make most people extremely happy. Now, if they did this, people who are willing to pay a premium for those features can do so, and then you can update the rest of your APS-C line, like the A6400. You could update that so that that competes with the Canon R7, and the A6100, update that so that competes with the Canon R10. And then you have the little ZV-E10 line, which will be our budget-friendly line that will get us all into the Sony ecosystem. Ecosystem? The Sony ecosystem that we can never, ever break free from because we're tied to all of our fantastic lenses. So many good lenses. Anyway, I just figured I'd give you a Saturday morning video, something to chew on, think about. Why don't you write below in the comments what you think they need for an APS-C flagship and how much you think it will cost, and then I will immediately dismiss all of your thoughts and go back to my own theories. I'm a pillar of health now. My body's a temple. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.